City Police Commissioner Michael Harrison is out. We dive into the legacy he left behind. And if Baltimore was made safer under his leadership. Plus the uncertain future of a troubled crime reduction program. Why it might not be catching on as well as leaders hoped. City law enforcement preparing to ramp up their efforts to clear the streets of illegal dirt bikes. Why some are convinced this is just a publicity stunt.
I believe it's politically driven.
Baltimore County still reeling after two teens are accused of shooting each other in front of a school. The action leaders are taking to keep you safe and why some say it's not enough.
We start changing some things.
Then former President Trump expected to surrender to authorities, what the House Speaker is urging fellow Republicans to do on Trump's behalf.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Thank you for staying with Fox 45 News. I'm Kai Jackson. Maxine Stryker is off tonight. We're following three big stories tonight. More than 36 federal counts are unsealed against former President Donald Trump in the Mar-a-Lago documents probe. The new details of just what he's accused of and how he's preparing to fight those charges. Another dirt bike blitz in Baltimore this week, but many question will it be enough to keep the peace on the roads and quiet across Baltimore neighborhoods. A closer look as the summer practice returns. And now, the former Baltimore City Police Commissioner doubles down on the group violence reduction strategy, one that expanded this year.
We know that without a doubt, the efforts of the group violence reduction strategy have been incredibly effective in reducing the number of homicides and shootings in our city.
Now, with signs that plan may not be catching on in new locations. Fox 45's Jeff Abel takes a closer look at the new leadership in Baltimore and the future of their crime-fighting strategy. Jeff?
Well, the group violence reduction strategy is indeed at the heart of the city's crime fight, and one which the acting police commissioner is vowing to pursue, despite plenty of questions about its effectiveness.
We're going into territories we never experienced before.
In the largest neighborhood in the city's Western District, there are a flood of problems.
For the last 7 years, 50 homicides a year.
And a president who's determined to fix them.
Last year we had 38. It was a significant reduction.
Marvin Doc Cheatham leads the Matthew Henson Neighborhood Association and credits last year's reduction in homicides to greater police visibility in the area. And not to the group violence reduction strategy, which was launched in the Western District last year.
They've done nothing here. They don't even come here. They don't even come here.
The group violence reduction strategy is at the center of the city's crime fight in the Western and Southwestern districts. The strategy provides services and money to those who show potential for violence. And city leaders have long maintained it's reducing crime, despite skepticism from some city council members.
If the numbers don't suggest that, it tells me one of two things. Maybe we didn't displace crime.
We are actually making a significant impact in what the fatal and non-fatal numbers look like in the Western District.
They're giving numbers. How do you substantiate the numbers? Do you give us the names and addresses of who these people are?
Despite questions, on Thursday, the city's acting police commissioner vowed to stay the course on the crime-fighting strategies, even though the program's director is stepping down at the end of the month.
So we're on the right path. And continue to build a group violence reduction strategy. That's the city's strategy, and we will continue to do that as we move across the city.
You don't pay people to not do wrong. You teach them how to do right.
Cheatham believes the millions in funding the program currently receives could have a larger impact elsewhere.
But I do know that it could benefit some of the programs and projects that we could have if we got some of that money.
So far in the Western Districts this year, homicides are up 21% from the same time period last year. We're live. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
All right, Jeff, thank you. Now, there are signals the group violence reduction strategy's expansion may not be going as planned. Operations began January 1st in the Southwestern District. Through May 15th, through May, 15 people turned down offers of service, according to the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, or MONSE. Now, that's just one fewer than the Western District, which has had GVRS operations going on for almost a year and a half. Well, tonight we want to look at public safety, another aspect of that under the tenure of Commissioner Michael Harrison. Each year during his 4 years in Baltimore, the city saw more than 300 homicides. Alexa Ashwell reports on where public safety stands right now as we now see a change in leadership.
Baltimore then versus now. Is the city safer than it was back in 2019 when Michael Harrison became commissioner of the Baltimore Police Department? Mayor Brandon Scott pointing out homicides and shootings are down.
A 19% reduction in homicides and an 8% reduction in non-fatal shootings, respectively, year over year.
But not all are convinced the city is safer.
I don't think much progress has been made on the crime fighting front.
Here, a snapshot of Harrison's more than 4-year tenure. 2019, the city is in its 5th consecutive year of more than 300 homicides. A mother's agonizing cry, one of the first homicides Harrison responds to less than a week after being sworn in as commissioner.
It's unacceptable. It's a level of violence that's constantly increasing.
2020, the year of the pandemic and marked by more changes in leadership. Mayor Brandon Scott takes office, later announcing the group violence reduction strategy. The commissioner on board with the plan.
Some call it focused deterrence, but it targets the subset of individuals committing the most violence. And this mayor and I, we are aligned.
Also that year, then City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby announcing she will no longer prosecute lower level crimes. A controversial move, some say, handcuffed the police and contributed to an increase in crime. The city once again surpassing 300 homicides. 2021, the number of killings on par with 2020 and marked by a deadly attack on one of the department's own. Officer Kiana Holly ambushed while on duty.
She was at her designated post in a high crime area.
2022, city leaders applying pressure on the commissioner as crime spikes in the summer. The month of June marking the city's most murderous month since 2015.
Do you think it's time for this administration and the police department to reevaluate the current crime plan? These levels of violence are simply not sustainable.
I think we all agree that it's not sustainable. You and I will agree on that it's not sustainable, and that it is increasing. But it's increasing everywhere, in every city.
2023, overall homicides and shootings have declined, but spiked among young people.
Yet again, we're talking about young people using guns against other young people. And so it has to stop.
The juvenile crime crisis, one of the biggest issues that remains as Harrison steps away from the helm.
When the history book is written on his 4 years as commissioner, that there was a lot of focus on consent decree compliance, and there's been continued challenges on the crime fighting front. And the biggest challenge of all is just maintaining an adequate staff police department.
Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Commissioner Michael Harrison is the latest in a growing list of top city officials who've left under this Scott administration. Fire Chief Niles Ford resigned after a report highlighted a poor culture in the fire department and deficiencies in firefighter safety. Department of Public Works Director Jason Mitchell has announced plans to leave the department, but has twice delayed his resignation date. He's now planning on serving through the end of this month. And last month, the director of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, Shantae Jackson, announced her plans to resign. Ms. Jackson said a key figure in the mayor's Safe Streets and gun violence reduction programs. One expert called it a, quote, crisis last night. Some within the city's own Human Resources Department have said requirements that prospective agency heads live within the city make it difficult for them to fill critical positions. So who is taking over for Michael Harrison? Coming up at 10:30, we'll introduce you to Richard Worley.
What happens is most of the time you don't become a commissioner in the city, the agency that you come through. I'm lucky enough to hopefully do that now.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor will report on Worley's background and his vision for the future of policing in Baltimore. Let's check in on our question of the day. We've been asking you, do you think it was the right time for Michael Harrison to step down? So far, 65% of you say no. To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com/vote. Baltimore police are looking to identify this man after last weekend's shooting in the heart of Federal Hill. A 26-year-old man was shot around 1:45 Saturday morning, not far from Cross Street Market. Metro Crime Stoppers is offering a reward of up to $4,000 to locate the man seen here on your screen. You can call Baltimore police if you have any information about this crime. Former President Donald Trump is expected to surrender to authorities on Tuesday. It comes as the Department of Justice levels 37 criminal charges against him as members of his own party, even rivals on the presidential campaign trail, defend him. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has the story.
Good afternoon.
Special counsel Jack Smith breaking his silence after the world learned why his investigation led to the historic indictment of a former president.
Felony violations of our national security laws, as well as participating in a conspiracy to obstruct justice. Applying those laws, collecting facts, that's what determines the outcome of an investigation. Nothing more and nothing less.
The 49-page indictment explaining in stark detail how the classified materials, which allegedly included information on U.S. nuclear programs, were stored on a stage in a Mar-a-Lago ballroom, in a shower, and spilled across a storage room floor. Trump getting his defense in order, announcing a shakeup in his legal team Friday afternoon, and reacting to news his former aide, Walt Nauta, is also indicted, calling the FBI and DOJ corrupt. Accusations of bias being tested against special counsel Jack Smith's choice of where to indict Trump, in his home state of Florida rather than the heavily Democratic District of Columbia. Former U.S. Attorney John Fishwick tells me it'll be tough for Trump to claim a Florida jury is biased against him like he did recently in a civil trial in Manhattan.
The venue is significant because ultimately that's going to be where the trial takes place and where the jurors come from.
Judge Eileen Cannon, who was appointed by Trump in 2020, will reportedly oversee the case, at least initially.
And if he's found guilty under those circumstances where the trial was held in Palm Beach over a Trump-appointed judge, I think it'll give the American people confidence that it was a fair process.
What cannot be avoided is the timing of the 2024 presidential election. Ultimately, the judge will determine when the trial occurs.
There's no good answer. If it's sooner, it will affect the primaries. If it's later, it will affect the elections. If there's already been an election, that would change things as well.
Many of Trump's fellow Republican presidential hopefuls coming to his defense or at least agreeing with his claims against the DOJ.
I had hoped the DOJ would see its way clear to resolve this without an indictment. I think this is going to be terribly divisive for the country.
Not every Republican agrees. Senator Mitt Romney argues the DOJ's given Trump more opportunities to avoid charges than they'd afford anyone else, pointing out the government has the burden of proving its case beyond a reasonable doubt. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar reporting.
Well, this evening, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy urged Republicans on the Judiciary Committee to investigate Attorney General Merrick Garland's handling of the investigation. It's not clear when or if hearings could be held, but what that would give Democrats a chance to demand answers on investigations like the one into President Biden's handling of classified documents. We'd like you to join the national conversation. Do you think the federal indictment of former President Trump is justified? Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the Pulse tab to participate. So far, 95% of those who voted say no. Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, city police announced a dirt bike bust this week. Why one resident called the move political, as many are concerned about the illegal activity and loud noise continuing. This Maryland license plate commemorating 200 years since the War of 1812 has a website that mistakenly directed people to an overseas gambling site. Fox 45 News checked, and it's changed again. We'll show you where it takes users now.
We're looking at better air quality over the weekend, staying in that moderate range, and we're also talking hotter temperatures. I'll let you know what you can expect coming up.
And up next at 10:30 tonight, Baltimore County youth caught up in crime. The calls for change after 3 juveniles have been shot in the past week.
Fox 45 News, nominated for 26 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other local news stations combined.
New tonight, a show of force by police this spring when it comes to dirt bikes and ATV enforcement, routinely posting to social media their hauls, including dozens of vehicles in a recent bust, putting them ahead of last year's pace. But some are skeptical that anything is changing. Keith Daniels is live right now. And Keith, you apparently are hearing from some people who think this is a bit of a stunt.
Well, Guy, police say it's all about working to help keep people safe, the riders and the residents. They say some dirt bike riders have even been killed so far, and still tonight, for some observers, it's all about the timing of the recent enforcement. At the Anito Auto Service Shop in Park Heights, it's back to business as usual. The flow disrupted Saturday when the Baltimore Police Mobile Metro Unit executed a search and seizure warrant. Look at the photos. Police seized 33 illegal dirt bikes and ATVs, as well as other materials that were collected into evidence. Investigators say surveillance video led police to the location. The shop's owner, who did not want to be interviewed on camera, told me today the bikes were there getting repaired. He also said, "I'm not facing charges." Queen Brown, who lives in Baltimore City,
I just don't think it's as important as the gun.
Is at the shop for service, but talking about what happened. Brown calling the current crackdown on dirt bikes politically motivated.
I believe it's politically driven to make it appear as they doing more than what they're doing, but I don't think it's making a difference where it matters. Hard on crime, but they picking dirt bikes as a forum. I just think we got more important ones.
Political analyst John Deedy also taking note of the revved up enforcement, calling it good timing for Mayor Brandon Scott with an election year coming up in 2024.
People have been complaining about these dirt bikes for quite some time. The appearance of action is always a good thing. In the workplace, it works. In government, it works.
Police say their recent dirt bike enforcement so far this year has resulted in 15 arrests, 27 people charged, and 7 warrants, with 83 illegal vehicles seized as of this month. Well, police say last year they seized 130 illegal vehicles, and the search is on for more. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. If you see dirt bikes in your neighborhood, Fox 45 would like you to share information with us if you can do so safely. Go to foxbaltimore.com/chime in to give us that information, or through the Chime In page on the WBFF mobile app. Also on the roads tonight, a DUI enforcement zone between Canton and Fells Point. Maryland State Police are warning anyone thinking about drinking and driving will get caught. This weekend, the mobile checkpoints with this blood alcohol testing unit will be up along Boston Street. Police also told Fox 45 that they chose this spot because of recent DUI incidents in the area.
She was a woman of great energy, of great kindness and empathy and love for her family and for strangers.
It's been 2 months since 6 construction workers were struck and killed on the Baltimore Beltway. First on Fox, we're hearing from one of those families. It comes after prosecutors charged 2 drivers in that deadly crash. They're accusing both of them of traveling at 120 miles an hour when they hit each other. Tonight, we're getting a glimpse at one of the lives lost today. Amy Simpson has a family's fight for justice.
This shouldn't have happened.
She was on the job that Wednesday afternoon.
We asked the Sybil DiMaggios of this world to go and put themselves into a dangerous position in the median strip of the Beltway to help us better the roads.
This Severna Park woman, Sybil DiMaggio, one of the 6 whose lives were cut short after a tragedy along the inner loop of 695 in March.
She and her husband met in high school. They were high school friends and years later got married. She had 2 children.
An attorney says DiMaggio's loved ones are grieving.
It's destroyed her family.
And honoring the life she lived.
He describes her as the kind of woman that would give a beer to a stranger. She loved music festivals. She loved traveling. She loved studying and learning new things.
Meanwhile, Susan Green says she's representing a man who arrived on the Beltway job site just after the crash.
He's distraught. I mean, this has destroyed him.
She says he frantically searched the scene to find the victims.
Unfortunately, the bodies would not be removed for 8 hours. And so he sat there. He would not leave until all of them were taken away and properly dealt with.
The two drivers now charged for that fatal crash both appeared before a judge this week. Prosecutors revealed the two were allegedly driving more than twice the 55-mile-per-hour speed limit before the crash that sent a car into the work zone, also alleging one of the drivers was under the influence.
We're happy that accountability is beginning in this horrible accident.
But this attorney says there's more to be learned about the circumstances around the tragedy.
And there are layers of responsibility upon layers in this case. People shouldn't go 122 miles an hour on the Beltway, but we know they do, and that enhances and increases the importance of protecting these people by putting simple safety measures in place.
The lawyers say they're now working to get more answers for the loved ones left behind, asking any witnesses to come forward.
We just want any information that anybody might have that could be useful to help these families.
This accident simply shouldn't have happened, that this was a very dangerous situation.
Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
There's new information following a deadly car crash last night in Harford County. Maryland State Police say just after 6 o'clock, troopers were called to I-95 in Abingdon. Witnesses say an SUV might have been speeding when the driver lost control. Police described that vehicle as swerving across two lanes, hitting the center divider, then flipping into oncoming traffic and hitting a Subaru. Police say both drivers were killed and two passengers in the Subaru were hurt. We have an update to the Maryland license plate debacle that we told you about last week. The URL at the bottom of the Star-Spangled War of 1812 bicentennial plates once took people to an overseas gambling website. Well, we can report that mix-up has been fixed. It now goes back to the MVA as intended. We asked the MVA if they had to pay to resecure that domain, and if so, how much. So far, we haven't heard back. When we do, we'll let you know. We have an update right now on the health of Pope Francis after undergoing a serious abdominal surgery. Baltimore City is entering its third weekend of a curfew, and leaders are saying that's helping address youth violence. Straight ahead, we questioned Baltimore County leaders after 3 teens were shot in the past week.
After a few days with very poor air quality, we're back to moderate levels, and that's where we'll stay over the weekend. It looks much better, and it's also going to be hotter as high temperatures reach the mid-80s tomorrow, the low 90s on Sunday, then the low 80s on Monday when we have the next chance for storms. We'll have a closer look at what to expect for the weekend coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Let's take a look right now at the Fox 45 quad box on the top left. Pope Francis is improving after his second serious abdominal surgery in 2 years. That's according to the Vatican. The 86-year-old pontiff is expected to remain in the hospital for a few more days as he was treated for a hernia. On the top right, Boris Johnson, the former British Prime Minister who resigned as head of state, is now out of politics entirely. Johnson, who's accused of breaking his own COVID-19 rules by hosting parties during the pandemic, is leaving Parliament, but he insists he did not deliberately mislead anyone over those gatherings. On the bottom left, the Department of Energy has announced plans to buy 3 million barrels of oil to help restock the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Last summer, President Biden dipped into that reserve to try and combat surging prices and production cuts from the Middle East. And on the bottom right, those reserve releases angered Saudi leaders. According to the Washington Post, Mohammed bin Salman threatened to sever the U.S.-Saudi alliance. Recent leaks show the Saudi crown prince promised huge economic pain on the United States. Well, the Baltimore Police Department is under new control. Up next, meet Richard Worley and his promises for the city.
I'm Vincent Hill. After a rash of shootings, how Baltimore County officials plan to tackle youth violence heading into the summer months.
Fox 45 is following two big stories tonight at 10:30. A week into the new month, and 3 teens have been shot across Baltimore County. How leaders are responding to youth crime as summer gets underway. First, Baltimore Police Department is under new leadership. A Baltimore native who Commissioner Michael Harrison says will lead the department into the future.
I have full confidence that he will lead the BPD forward with even more accomplishments and continue the greatest comeback story in America.
While we await confirmation hearings by the City Council, Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor reports on who Richard Worley is and his vision for the future of policing in the city of Baltimore.
It's an honor to be standing here.
Acting Commissioner Richard Worley, new to the role.
I've dedicated my life to service the city of Baltimore.
But not new to Baltimore.
And I look forward to continuing that service.
A big town native, the homegrown cop comes with nearly 25 years of experience within BPD, rising from patrol officer to second in command. Worley starting his career as a trainee in 1998. decade later, he was promoted to lieutenant and then major shortly after that. From there, he served as a lieutenant colonel in 2016, a full colonel in 2018, and has spent the past 9 months as deputy commissioner.
Most of the time, you don't become a commissioner in the city, the agency that you come through. I'm lucky enough to hopefully do that now.
Worley attributing much of his success to the mentorship and guidance of his predecessor, Michael Harrison, whose vision for reform and holistic approach to crime, Worley says he plans to continue.
We've changed the department. We went from being a warrior to a guardian mentality. We've not only reformed the department, but we're lowering crime while we're doing the same thing. And that's very, very difficult to do.
I do think that there's a warmth that Commissioner Worley will exude to his staff.
Former federal and state prosecutor Thuril Vignaraja backing the mayor's nomination, along with BPD's rank and file. Although Harrison's policies were frequently challenged and critiqued, Police Union President Mike Mancuso sending Fox 45 a statement, reading in part, quote, "The members of FOP3 are encouraged and optimistic about the nomination of Rich Worley for police commissioner. He knows Baltimore and BPD inside and out. We are hopeful that he is given the latitude to perform his duties in a fair and just manner."
Commissioner Worley is respected, he's seasoned, he is also a consummate professional. I don't know that anyone's going to second guess or question that judgment.
Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
A week ago, 2 juveniles were shot in Essex near Sandalwood Elementary. A few days later, a teen was shot in Parkville in the middle of the afternoon. As summer approaches now, Fox 45's Vincent Hill has more on what the county is doing to tackle youth crime there. Vincent?
Kind money and programs are what Baltimore County officials are using to tackle youth crime, but will it be enough to get the job done?
I heard about 3 or 4 gunshots.
Gunshots ringing out last Friday night in Essex in Baltimore County.
One headed towards the back of Sandalwood Elementary toward Woods. The other ran towards the townhouses.
A verbal argument leading to 2 people shooting each other.
Gunshot to the lower back. 14 or 15-year-old.
Both juveniles, now charged as adults. The shooting has this mother concerned for her own children.
As a mother of boys, I'm scared for them.
48 hours later in Parkville,
Woodland Hills, where a subject got shot.
Another shooting.
Only a 14-year-old.
Another juvenile. That shooting leading to Housestead Academy being put on lockdown while police look for a suspect.
The kids, they shouldn't even have access to these guns. And they do.
Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski acknowledging that concern on Fox 45's morning show a day after the Parkville shooting.
We have seen a couple of really unfortunate incidents.
Saying he's investing funding into the Baltimore County Police Department to tackle youth crime as summer approaches.
We're creating opportunities for recreation.
Baltimore County Police telling Fox 45 partnerships and programs that allow the department to engage with youth have been put in place, including the Youth Leadership Academy and Cops and Kids basketball and baseball clinics.
There are children that will shoot you in the face and then go get a hamburger from McDonald's like nothing happened.
Darren Badillo, director of the Baltimore County Parent and Student Coalition, agrees with the need for programs, but the former county executive candidate says a tough on crime stance needs to be taken when dealing with juveniles.
If we're talking about this summer, I just think that Johnny O, our elected officials, the new police chief, we need to be tough on crime.
Badillo says the main focus should be getting guns out of the hands of teens.
Our lawmakers really need to start listening to this. We need to start changing some things because people don't feel safe.
Baltimore County Police say they'll also continue to work with other law enforcement agencies as well as the Department of Juvenile Services to track any increases in youth violence. For now, we're live at Baltimore County Police Headquarters. Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Vincent, thank you. We are seeing juvenile crime in other counties as well. 2 teenagers are arrested in Anne Arundel County accused of trying to steal cars. Now, Anne Arundel County police say a 16-year-old from Laurel and a 15-year-old from Middle River were caught on Harold Court in Glen Burnie around 2 this morning. Investigators say the kids had broken into 2 Hyundai sedans and tried to steal them. Now, officers were able to arrest the kids after a foot chase. This is the second group of kids arrested for stealing cars in Glen Burnie this week. According to police, officers identified a stolen car around 11:30 Tuesday night and followed it to an apartment that had a second stolen car parked nearby. Officers arrested the driver and 3 suspects. 2 of them are 15 years of age. The other 2 are only 14. The city is addressing youth crime by implementing a curfew on weekends all summer. Last weekend, something was thrown through the Connection Center transport van's window, damaging it. Children under the age of 14 have to be home by 9 o'clock. Those 14 to 17 have to be off the streets by 11. This is the start of the third weekend of Baltimore's curfew. Fox 45 News recently sat down with the man in charge of the State Department of Juvenile Services, Secretary Vincent Schiraldi. Our full interview is available to you on YouTube. You can scan the QR code on your screen or search Fox Baltimore on YouTube. In the interview, Schiraldi talks about a bombshell report finding failures within the DJS and how he wants to improve the agency. There are ongoing national debates around gender identity, pronoun usage, and what LGBTQ topics are appropriate for children. The National Desk Janae Bowens breaks down a new study that shows what religion plays in the conversation.
New research finds the majority of Americans believe there are only two gender identities, and Christian Americans have the strongest convictions.
Under this, when Jesus said, "Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself."
Does that mean Christians must recognize and love all gender identities and use people's preferred pronouns?
God does love everyone.
Sarah Parshall-Perry, a senior legal fellow with the Heritage Foundation, says no.
It does not necessitate that we act against our own individual beliefs.
A new survey from the Public Religion Research Institute shows 65% of all Americans believe there are only two gender identities. Religious breakouts see even higher numbers. 92% of white evangelicals believe there are only two genders, and the very large majority of Black Protestants, white Catholics, and Latino Catholics say the same.
These individuals recognize from the book of Genesis moving forward that only men and women exist. If there are individuals that believe themselves to be something else, that is a mental health diagnosis.
But Reverend Dr. Kristen Provost Switzer, a pastor who prefers she/they pronouns, disagrees.
In the United Church of Christ, we say that God is still speaking. And a follow-up question to that is, are we still listening? You might believe that God has no gender. You might even say that God in themselves is non-binary.
The survey also looked at usage of gender-neutral pronouns like they, them. Around 1/3 of Americans say they would be somewhat or very comfortable if a friend told them they use gender-neutral pronouns. 23% say it doesn't matter, while 40% would be uncomfortable. That number higher for some religious Americans. I'm Janae Bowens for the National Desk.
And take a look at this. New graduates are celebrating one of the biggest milestones of their lives today. This was the scene at Coppin State University as hundreds of students from Carver Vocational Technical High School walked across the stage to get their diplomas. Hours later on the same stage, Edmonds and Westside High School threw their caps into the air and took their next steps towards a new career or higher education. We wish them all well and congratulations. Also at Coppin this afternoon, students at Western High School held their graduation ceremony. Maryland Congressman Kwesi Mfume addressed the graduates. Congratulations. And some of our viewers also sent in their own graduation pictures today. These are some students who celebrated their graduation from Loch Raven Technical Academy yesterday. If you have a new graduate in your life, we want to see the pictures. To share them with us, scan the QR code on your screen right now or head to foxbaltimore.com. You're looking at live pictures from the U.S. Capitol. Lawmakers are responding after China reportedly ramps up efforts to spy on the United States. National correspondent